Hi, this is Nathan Wilson. Welcome back to Independence Money, or if your money's not independent, how independent are you? Teeing off of the debt ceiling debate and some other topics that are going on in our current environment. There is the conversation about the central bank digital currency. And it kind of stemmed from an executive order last year where, and I read the order, it kind of started off with we are commissioning, I think, 19 different government agencies to look into cryptocurrencies, regulation on cryptocurrencies. Of course, last week I found out the SEC turned around and turned some 37 cryptocurrencies into securities. And then inside of that executive order was exploring the possibility of a central bank digital currency. This would be something under the control of the Federal Reserve and running presumably on the blockchain. So, the title of this video is cash going to disappear? I don't think it is, but I'm going to present a couple of options here to consider. A lot of the younger generation are already on electronic payment systems. I mean, there's many people I've met that don't even carry any cash at all between their Apple Pay or Google Pay on their phones, their debit cards, or other similar banking applications like Venmo. They just run on cashless. But a lot of the older people still maintain cash. And then there's the element of United States is a very diverse population, and we do have immigrants and different cultures, and a few of those cultures definitely use a heavier cash system. And so I think there's going to, it will for some, it won't for others. However, there are pushbacks on the central bank digital currency. For one, there's several in the Republican Party have tried to revive the idea of linking the dollar to precious metals, mostly as a disdain for current monetary policies and unconstrained increase in the money supply. We saw that in the deficit debate, where they put some restrictions on discretionary spending because it's kind of been out of control now. And then there's some bills like Tom Emmer, Minnesota has a bill, and he cited that it's important to note that the Fed does not and should not have the authority to offer retail bank accounts. So according to him, the law does not allow the Federal Reserve to take over the banking system. Of course, we've got other concerns, which is electronic payments can be a breach of privacy. A lot of the concerns that we have on the central bank digital currency is essentially is spying and monitoring and tracking transactions. But I think the privacy bag is really, or the cat's already out of the bag. A lot of people pretty much detail their whole lives on social media or, Facebook, which definitely tracks information about you. A lot of the younger generation use Google Chrome. And according to the Washington Post, we've got Jeffrey Fowler that basically recommended switching to Firefox and DuckDuckGo, referring to Google's web browser as, quote, spy software. And Google is, quote, the biggest snoop of all. So I think if you're concerned about privacy, it needs to extend past, obviously, this one topic. We do have, obviously, concerns about identity theft and phishing scams. And then, of course, as I mentioned, there are people, especially in the older generation, that still file their taxes on paper. So getting them to convert to an app and using a central bank digital currency is going to be very difficult. So I am of the opinion that this is going to be a multi-generational thing. It does have some resistance. It does have some concerns, and it'll be an interesting topic to follow. I would certainly appreciate your comments or weigh-ins as well. Now, some of the pros of a CBDC is transactions are instant. So even now, transactions sometimes settle overnight. This would be instant. It would lower the economic cost of banking. Of course, it would make illegal activity easier to trace, but the slippery slope there is it would make legal activity very easy to trace. It comes with, concerns that, like I said, of cybersecurity and traceability. There is a large percentage of people that don't trust the banks. The FDIC did a survey in 2021, And on the unbanked, and found the second largest reason for people not having an account was trust in the banks. Another article from Pew Research found out that nearly 60% of Americans have used cash to do a purchase at least weekly. And so I would say somewhere between 7%, according to my research, of households have no banking relationship, and those that have a minimal banking relationship, but not for their major transactions, could be as high as 20%. So some things to follow, some things to know about. And the other major thing is if you don't use your liberties, you lose your liberties. So how many people have physical money in their wallet, and how many people have some for an emergency? Should there be some technology that goes down intentionally or accidentally? I think cash has a role for there to keep some in emergencies. Another is obviously, physical metal. I don't think we're going to go back to Roman days where we're walking around with a little purse of silver coins. I don't want to really think about living in a world like that, but it does lower any kind of counterparty risk. There's always somebody that will trade something for what you want and what they want. You can always do those transactions independently of whatever system comes out. We've seen that happen in major inflationary environments as well, where people will trade, like in World War II, anything in a different country's currency, as well as something simple like trading packs of cigarettes and things like that. So I think there's a role for precious metals. I'm not in the apocalyptic mindset where the dollar is going to just completely explode. I think it's going to devalue. We have had a long history of that since 1917. The Fed has done an awesome job at running like 95% of our purchasing power. So what's the other 5%? I think that could be something to expect, no matter whether they roll out a CBDC or continue their current monetary policies. Another fun fact is there are other countries. I mean, this is Mexico, and that's the same denomination of a different type of paper and print. Certainly, other countries' money is a little bit prettier than ours, but the United States doesn't want to make the changes because of the continuity of always having that greenback look like it always had and it always will. So there's a case for that. And I know in societies like in Mexico, when I travel, it's a lot more cash intensive. So if you travel to places like that, I think it makes sense to have some foreign currencies, because it's just easier to get a taxi sometimes and tip that way. And that's perfectly legal to have. Making it real clear, I'm not giving you any kind of investment, legal, or tax advice on this next part, but there are legal ways, if you follow the rules, to have cash bank accounts in other currencies, in other countries. It depends on how you set it up and the dollar amount, on how you have to report it. I have some contacts with some attorneys on my team, if you are in need of those contacts, that can answer those questions on how to properly file and report. If you don't, the penalties can be very extreme, both criminally and monetarily. But other currencies have some value. I know the peso has rallied against the dollar quite a bit this year. I mean, it traded in a range of 19 or 20 to 1 for quite some time, and now it's in the 17s. As well as Mexico, I checked with one of the banks down there today, is offering 9.5% interest. And that's before you account any appreciation of the peso against the dollar. Of course, those trends can reverse, but this is the point of this, is there are alternatives. I think the last thing I would kind of point out is watch the competition. There are several projects out there that are trying to get e-commerce off the ground that are pegged to some level of precious metals. The big one I want to point out is the great country of Texas. They have a bill in the House and the Senate to basically allow a centralized or central bank digital currency fully backed and fully redeemable by gold. And the gold has to be overseen by the comptroller and held within a depository in the borders of Texas. The preliminary debate in the bill is to allow other people from, outside of Texas to be able to participate in that system. And one of the representatives actually made the point that this is a direct result of the fact that the Federal Reserve is just printing money. If they can print 1 trillion, why can't they print 2? If they can print 2, why can't they print 10 or a quadrillion? their monetary policies are fast and loose, and we want to offer a more stable system. So I don't think it's one of those things that they're just gonna, we're gonna wake up and they're gonna have complete control over us with trackable digital currency. I think there's gonna be pushback. I think there's gonna be alternatives, but I welcome your thoughts. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and y'all have a good day.